So this morning, I'm going to continue with the 4 cardinal virtues that Lao Tzu taught. A couple weeks ago, I spoke about the reverence for all of life, respect for all living creatures, all beings in creation. And last week, I spoke about natural sincerity, which is about living a life that reflects choices coming from that respect and affection for our own true nature. So this morning I'm speaking on gentleness, and I love that word. It just even feels good, doesn't it? Gentleness. And that personifies that adage. When you have the choice to be right or to be kind, always be kind. That's how this virtue manifests. Kindness, consideration for others, and sensitivity to spiritual truth. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "You cannot do a kindness too soon because you never know how soon it will be too late." And I think that's a good one to hold on to, right, for all of us. Whatever can be done more effectively in our life with kindness, with that gentleness, with that sincerity. Whatever is said becomes more powerful when it's expressed with that genuine kindness and sincerity. And maybe you've experienced this. I know I have, and that is even one moment of kindness from somebody, be it a friend or a stranger or a loved one, can have a lasting impact on you for the rest of your life. And being open to that kindness, to that gentleness, comes naturally when we open our heart. That's all we have to do, is just open our heart and be the V word. It keeps coming up, doesn't it? Vulnerable. The idea of gentleness implies that we no longer have that strong ego-inspired desire to dominate or to control, whether it's other people or situations or circumstances. And as we let go of the control that we think we have, we begin to fully align ourselves with life. We begin to live harmoniously, no matter how life shows up. As we become less occupied with that I from the ego standpoint, we become kinder, we become more gentle in our relationships to ourselves and to others as well. The more kindness and sensitivity that we extend to other people, the less likely we are to start blaming other people or situations for our life circumstances. And for not living up to our expectations. We can take full responsibility for our life and for our experiences that we're having. We become empowered in our life to do more, to be more, to give more. Gentleness means accepting life and people as they are, not as we wish them to be. Not insisting that they be as we are. That's such a big difference. It's about that freedom from separation and from all that harshness, the roughness, the intensity that tends to happen when we get in a situation in our life that doesn't feel real good. It's about letting go of judgments, listening to that divine wisdom that speaks to us, that still small voice of reason, of wisdom that lies within each and every single one of us. And to accept and to follow that divine wisdom is always, always a better choice than listening to our ego, than going with the decision the ego has chosen for us. As we live that virtue of gentleness, we understand that it includes a true humility that doesn't consider itself too good for what we may have in the past considered a humble task. I was reading a story about this guide who was taking a group of visitors through a factory. And one of the things he showed them was this great, big, giant steam hammer, and capable of smashing a car. The guide put down a walnut, and then he let the hammer down, and he let it break the shell without hurting the meat inside of that nut, as an illustration of the gentleness as power under perfect control. Gentleness is never self-important. It's considerate, it's courteous, it's modest, and it's willing to do whatever it is that needs to be done. Aristotle gave a great definition of gentleness as halfway between excessive anger and indifference. And I love that because he felt that the gentle person could be angry and at the right time, and submissive at the right time. It's all about balance, right? One way that we've all seen genuine consideration for others show up is when somebody has one of those intense, life-altering experiences, pulls through it, and then wants to share with others how it affected them and how they did it and how to move through that with grace. So in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I want to share a really beautiful poem written by a woman in 2008 who is a breast cancer survivor. Her name is Jill Eisenagel. And this is what she wrote. Dear Lord, you've done so much for me. Thank you with all my soul. But I've something to ask of thee, needing your grand control. I've waged this battle and I've won, yet others battle still. For some, their journey's just begun. Please guide each in your will. I've walked this road, I've felt each bump, I've conquered your test. I've grown much wiser since the lump located in my breast. I see the world much differently. I pray others will too. So many fight audaciously. Lord, help to see them through. Dear Lord, I ask with all my heart, please touch these special lives. Bless them with the courage from the start. Bring hope into their eyes. Let their hope shine a hallowed light that burns forevermore to honor their spirited fight and our dreams for a cure. That's about being vulnerable and open, right? And sharing that passion, that compassion with others, wanting others to feel what they're feeling, to be where they are. Her undertaking of this breast cancer gave her the compassion and the desire to want to see that same healing and that same level of awareness for everybody else. What a beautiful gift. And I know many of you know through personal experience, be it yourself or a loved one, we've all been touched with breast cancer one way or another. And we all know what it's like to wrestle with that issue or a different issue and turn that into deep compassion to help those who are going through that same thing. Because we want and know that eventually in our lifetime there will be a cure, in particular for breast cancer. There has to be. The virtue of gentleness is a gratifying quality that invites warmth, comfort, and truth into our daily lives, into our daily goings on. It creates that pleasurable, enjoyable environment as we soften all those sharp, coarse, abrasive edges of conflict that may arise in our life, sometimes unexpectedly, most of the time unexpectedly. Lao Tzu tells us this: if you wish to gain merit and become one with the divine, then develop your virtue and extend it to the world. Let go of all conflict and strife. Practice unswerving kindness and unending patience. Now, I know those things aren't always easy to do. I know that from personal experience. Haven't we all had times when we just can't quite open our heart yet? And I'll tell you what, the more we practice, the better we get. And that's what it's about. Practice, practice, practice. And here's something that I really want you to think about, and I really want you to remember. Because there are 4 things that cannot be recovered. The stone after the throw, the word after it's said, the occasion after it's missed, and the time after it's gone. I think it's really important to think about and sit with those things and move yourself into that kindness, compassion, gentleness. Here at Common Ground, the virtue of gentleness and consideration for others, sensitivity to spiritual truth, as Lao Tzu put it, it's key here for us. I mean, that is the core here of who we are and what we do. We come together to nurture and care for each other. That's what a family of choice does, right? This is a family of choice, people that we choose to spend our time and, in many cases, our life with. And we don't do it for any specific reason, except it's the right thing to do. That is who we are intrinsically. And the truth is, it's innate in all of humanity. And we embrace that. We're fortunate, very fortunate, to realize we can be that safely in this environment. And what a God-given gift that is. I mean, you'll notice that when people come to Common Ground, it's for personal growth, right? It's that for that soul-to-soul connection that we have with one another. It's not for financial gain. It's not for personal agenda. That's intentional. What we created here is intentional spiritual community because we want to be fed spiritually. We want to be with like-minded people, people who understand that we think maybe a little differently than many. We want to learn from each other. We want to expand our outlook on life, on reality, on the way the world works. We just love. We want to love and be loved in the same way, openly loved, unconditionally loved, simply for who we are. To be honored for who we are. Not someone who thinks, not who someone thinks we are. That's what I'm trying to say. We want to be loved for who we are. We don't want to be loved for what we can do for somebody or how we can benefit another. We want to be loved for that God being that we are. And that's why this is called a safe sanctuary, because coming together is a sacred, loving experience. We get bombarded with the rest of that stuff out there in the world. So the idea of intentional spiritual community is to honor each other with great consideration, with kindness, with gentleness, with compassion. I'm going to share this story with you in closing, because it is really a very powerful one, and it's the epitome of showing great love and gentleness, compassion and consideration, and one might even say safe sanctuary, and definitely a sacred loving experience. It's called They're Singing Your Song, and Alan Cohen is an author, and he wrote this in one of his books. He said, when a woman in a certain African tribe knows she is pregnant, she goes out into the wilderness, and she takes a few of her friends with her, and they pray and they meditate until they hear the song of that child. They recognize that every soul has its own vibration and expresses its own unique flavor and purpose. When the women attune to the song, and they all do, they'll sing it out loud. And then they return to the tribe and they teach it to everyone else. When that child is born, the entire community gathers together and sings that song's child to him or her. How beautiful is that? And then later, when that child enters school, the village gathers again, chants the child's song. When the child passes through initiation into adulthood, yes, the people again gather and sing that child's song. The time this person gets married, they sing that song to him or her. There is only one other occasion that the village comes together and sings that song to this child. If at any time during this child's life or adult life, that if that person commits a crime or has unacceptable social behavior, the individual is called to the center of the village, and the people and the community form a circle. And guess what? They sing that song to him or her. And they do that because the tribe recognizes that the correction for antisocial behavior isn't punishment. It's love. It's the remembrance of who you are. When you recognize your own song, they say you have no desire or need to do anything that would hurt another. It's all about embracing humanity, right? Their own humanity and expressing that divine spark. I just love that story. And that goes true for all of you too. In this community, your friend is someone who knows your song and who sings it when you have forgotten it. We all have somebody to remind us of who we are. That's why we come together. Those who love you are not fooled by mistakes you've made or by dark thoughts that you may have about yourself. We don't see any of that. We remember your beauty when you feel ugly. We remember your wholeness when you feel broken. We remember your innocence when you feel guilty, and your purpose when you were confused. Now, you may not have grown up in an African tribe, and you probably didn't. That sings your song to you at these crucial life transitions. However, life always reminds us when we're in tune with ourselves and when we are not. When you feel good, you're doing what you're doing matches your song. And when you don't feel so good, it simply doesn't match. In the end, we will all recognize and sing our song, and we will sing it well. Thank you so much for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.